Merry Christmas to everyone. Praise the Lord. We are so blessed to have watched the presentation of the children. You know, they really exerted a lot of effort to do it. And truly, they gave joy to us as well as they did their presentation. We'll continue with our worship this evening as we look at the writings of Matthew chapter 2, verses 13 to 23. Okay? So let's have a meditation from the Word of God as already portrayed earlier. And let's see a record of the birth of Jesus, even the events after His very birth. Let's open our Bibles in the book of Matthew chapter 2, verses 13 to 23. I'll read from the NASB 1995 edition. Now when they had gone, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him." So Joseph got up and took the child and his mother while it was still night and left for Egypt. He remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." Then when Herod saw that he had been tricked by the Magi, he became very enraged and sent and slew all the male children who were in Bethlehem and all its vicinity from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the Magi. Then what had been spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and she refused to be comforted because they were no more. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and go into the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead." So Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judah in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Then after being warned by God in a dream, he left for the regions of Galilee and came and lived in a city called Nazareth. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophets, "He shall be called a Nazarene." May the good Lord bless the reading of His word. There was a child that was asked by his mom to buy a salt, maybe just for around 5 pesos of salt. So he went there to the store, and then he got so engrossed with some items that he saw in the store that after he knocked on the door of the store, the seller, the vendor came out and said, "What do you want, little boy?" And then the little boy said, "What did my mom ask me to buy?" And he said, "May I have some bitchin?" So he bought some bitchin. And then the vendor gave him the bitchin, and then he went home and then handed it to his mom. And then when his mother told him, "What did you buy? Why did you not buy a salt?" And then the boy responded, "Abi man gud nako." Well, that expression among the Visayan people is talking about a state of an honest misunderstanding. Abi man gud nako. One time on a table, there were cups of coffee, and there was a fountain of coffee. So it was very attractive to me. And the host of the event told me, "Pastor, there is a coffee there. You may get as much as you want." So I went there to get a coffee. And then I got some sugar, placed on my coffee, and then went back to the table. But when I sipped what's inside my cup, I was surprised. It was very salty. Kato di ay ang ilang nabutang abi nilag asukar. Asin di ay. Daghan gyud mamatay aning abi nako. Abi man good nako. In an event, some people arrive around 8 in the morning. And then the janitor of the hall said, "Why are you here?" They said, "We are here to attend the party." And the janitor said, "What party?" "The party of this company." And the janitor told them, "I think it was the party that was held yesterday." And then those who came there, he said, just said to themselves, "Abi man good namo." Well, there is a character based on the passage that we read who was in that state of misunderstanding. And that character, based on the text that we read, was no other than Herod the king. Herod the king. We often hear about him during Christmas because he is presented in the Gospels during the birth of Jesus Christ. Now, here is something that happened to him. Herod was reigning as like a little king over Judea because there was a supreme king that was reigning in those places before, no other than Caesar himself. But Herod was given the chance to reign in that small area of Judea. So Herod looked at himself as a king. One day, there were magi who arrived. And by the way, before I proceed explaining about this matter, I want to erase some misconceptions or misunderstanding that the modern day readers about these people. The Magi were never mentioned in the Bible as kings. We celebrate within January the Day of the Three Kings. But that's a hoax. The Bible doesn't mention that they were kings. Why were they understood as kings? Probably because of the kind of gifts that they offered to Jesus. Second misunderstanding of the modern day readers of the text is that there were three kings. Other than that, they were not kings. We were not sure that they are three. One thing that we are sure about is that they are more than one because the Bible described them with the word magi. If there was only one person who visited Jesus, it should have been magus. But because the noun was in a plural form, it gives us an idea that there were more than one magi. More than one people who visited him and offered him a gift. Where did they get the idea of three? Maybe also from the number of gifts presented to Jesus. You look at the passage as narrated by Pastor John Ray earlier, it was mentioned that he was offered with frankincense, gold, and myrrh. Three kinds of gifts. But the Bible never mentioned that they were kings, and the Bible never mentioned that there were three of them. Okay? Another misunderstanding of the modern day readers about the text is that the Magi arrived in Jerusalem just the same night that Jesus was born. That's not warranted biblically. Why? The Magi came from the east. In a modern day, we may refer it to somewhere in Iraq or Iran. Those places. And those places that I have mentioned were about 900 miles away from Jerusalem. You cannot travel 900 miles with a camel or by walking just within one night, a few hours. That cannot happen. And most of the time, people back then would travel in caravans and they travel for days. There was one time in the scriptures that Ezra was described traveling from those places going to Jerusalem. It took them 4 months. 4 months. So it's a wrong understanding to think that the Magi were right away there at the presence of Mary and Joseph when Jesus was born. It's a misunderstanding of the text. In fact, later Herod ordered that male babies from 2-year-old and below shall be slaughtered. Why did he order that level of age of the babies? because Jesus probably was more than 1 year old already, or a bit lesser than that. So Herod wanted to make it so sure that he would slaughter the king, whom he thought is going to take his place. And that was the biggest misunderstanding of Herod. Now, when the Magi arrived, they went to Jerusalem. They inquired from Herod. And the inquiry was found in Matthew chapter 2, verse 2. What was the question of the Magi? Where is he who was been born King of the Jews? We are here to worship him. We are here to honor him. Where is he who has been born the King of the Jews? And they were talking to the whom? To the King of Judea. Are you seeing how the author presented here? The Magi arrived in Jerusalem, and the inquiry was, where is he who has been born the King of the Jews? And they were talking to the King of Judea. Herod understood that he was the King of the Jews who were living in Judea. Thus, when the Magi asked him, where is he who has been born King of the Jews? It was a threat to Herod. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? Someone is born and he is the King of the Jews. And I want us to take note about the description of the Magi. They never said he is going to be the King of the Jews. They said someone is born and he is the King of the Jews. As the reigning king that time, it was a red flag for Herod. This baby is considered by the Jews a king, meaning to say he is taking my place. He is taking my throne away from me. So he said to the Magi, you go and look for him. And he inquired of the priests and all the chief priests and all the experts of the law. He gathered all of them. They were considered the wise men of Jerusalem. So he gathered all of them and he wanted to confirm. He wanted to verify, and he asked them, where do you think will this King of the Jews would be born? And all of them affirmed to the fact that he will be born in Bethlehem of Judea. So it was an affirmation of what the Magi inquired about. And he was really alarmed about it. So before he released the Magi, he said, you go and look for the babe. And when you found him, you come back and tell me, because I'm going there to worship him as well. Herod was alarmed already because he misunderstood the statement of the Magi. When he inquired from the chief priests and the experts of the law, they affirmed the fact that he will be born in Bethlehem, and he was really, really afraid of the matter, and he misunderstood what the chief priest and the experts of the law said to him. Now we found out later that the Magi tricked him. They did not go back to him because angels appeared to them and told them that don't go back to Herod. You exit Jerusalem, from Jerusalem, in another route. So they left Jerusalem without going back to Herod. And this time, Herod probably was already waiting for them because he cannot stop himself from searching this baby, not to worship him, but he wanted to kill him. And what happened next is that one night, an angel appeared in a dream and spoke to Joseph. What did the angel say to Joseph? The angel said to Joseph, get up. Get up and bring Mary and the child to Egypt. Get up. The angel did not tell him, maybe next week you have to leave this place. But the revelation coming from God was in a form of a command. And it was an immediate action that was required out of that statement. The statement was, get up. It's now. You have to leave this place and go to Egypt. Because it was revealed there in the text, you read verses 3 and 4 of Matthew chapter 2, you would see there the author telling the readers that Herod is going to kill the baby. So actually, he was having a very, very horrific plan against the baby, when he told the Magi, "You call me, tell me where he is, and I'm going to worship him." And yet he was tricked by them, and this time he was enraged. He was so mad. And he started making an order. He sent his soldiers, kill every child, male child, who is in age 2 and below. And the soldiers really went out, and then there they were spread and searched for every male baby, 2-year-old and below, and slaughtered all of them. Now, out of that situation, a prophecy was fulfilled. Jeremiah prophesied about it, that Rachel, representing the tribes of Israel, he was prophesied to be mourning. And that was the moment, a dawn of mourning for the Israelites. In the entire Bethlehem, everyone was mourning. Everyone was crying when they found their babies dead already. The people were refusing to be comforted. Why? Because the babies were no more. So that was a horrific situation right after Christmas. Imagine that. And then Herod continued with what he was doing, thinking that he found the baby, and their soldiers killed the baby that he longed to murder, not knowing that Jesus escaped already, was brought by Joseph to Egypt. Now they live in Egypt. When they were in Egypt, the angel again appeared to Joseph in a dream and told him, "Herod is already dead. I want you to bring your family back to Israel." And when Joseph found out that it was Archelaus, maybe he was thinking, this man knows the desire of his father. Archelaus was the son of Herod. In fact, he's also called Herod Archelaus. So when they went back to Judea, it was no longer Herod the one who desired to kill Jesus, but now the son was reigning as the little king of Judea. And now, because Joseph was still afraid, he was led by the angel, and he went and settled near Galilee in the town called Nazareth. That idea may be seemingly out of nowhere if you read the passage, but that was also a fulfillment of the prophecy. In these verses that we read, beginning with verse 13 up to verse 23, there were 3 prophecies that were fulfilled. First, the mourning of the mothers in Bethlehem. Second, the escape to Egypt, because one of the prophets in the Old Testament mentioned that Jesus, the Messiah, the Christ, will be called by God coming from Egypt. And then Jeremiah was the one who prophesied that the entire Bethlehem in the tribe of Rachel will be mourning, will be crying, and they will refuse to be comforted. And then lastly, that this Messiah will be called the Nazarene. It was surrounded, the birth of Jesus, even after his birth. The scenarios that we have looked at this evening were all images of a horrific condition, and they all surrounded the nativity events. And here is something that I want us to take note. It is very unlikely that the birth of the one who will reconcile the sinners between God and human beings will be born surrounded with horrific conditions. But in the midst of those reality, they all happened because Herod misunderstood. He misunderstood the query of the Magi. He misunderstood the affirmation of the chief priest and of the experts of the law. And lastly, he misunderstood the very role of Jesus in the history of humanity. From the very beginning of the passage, Herod already gave a response that he was concerned about his political reign. That this baby that was born in a manger is going to take his throne, is going to take his place. is going to dethrone him, and he's going to reign over Judea because he's recognized as King of the Jews. But there is one thing that he missed and misunderstood about the role of Jesus. He was thinking that he's going to take his place on the throne. He missed the fact that this babe that was born during that night will take his place on the cross at Calvary. He misunderstood it. He thought he's going to take his place from the throne. And he never never understood, that Jesus will someday take his place at the cross. My dear brothers and sisters, the first Christmas was surrounded by many misunderstandings. Don't allow yourself to live with those misunderstandings about Christmas in our time. Because Christmas is neither about you nor your friends. Christmas is neither about what you can give nor what you receive. Christmas is neither about the lights and the decors, but it is about the King of Heaven who came to this world to take the place of the prisoners of darkness. Who are those prisoners of darkness? It's us. I'll repeat. Christmas is about the King of Heaven who came to this world to take the place of the prisoners of darkness. He did that when he died at the cross at Calvary more than 2,000 years ago. Never allow yourselves to misunderstand Christmas. Yes, it's okay to celebrate with a family. It's okay to rejoice with your friends. It's okay to enjoy the food that we prepared for ourselves. But never misunderstand that Christmas is about the King who has been misunderstood. Remember, during the first part of this series, we talk about Christmas from the eyes of Moses, Jesus, the victor against Satan. And in the second part, we talk about Christmas from the eyes of Isaiah, Jesus, the presence of God. And then last Sunday, we talk about Christmas from the eyes of Micah, Jesus, the ruler from above. Tonight, we just have looked into the text, Christmas from the eyes of Herod, Jesus, the misunderstood king. Well, don't misunderstand him today, because I am reminding every one of you from the Word of God, Christmas is about the King who came into this world to take the place, not of the throne that we take hold on, but to take the place of the guilty, to take the place of the prisoners of darkness. And that's you and me. Let's celebrate the season with a right understanding about who Jesus is and what He has done for you and for me. With that, Merry, Merry Christmas to one and all. And the Lord bless every one of us.